Good evening, you're very welcome to the Daily Rundown with me, Fiona Fox. Now, on the Daily Rundown, we talk about all the big stories of the day and some of those littler ones that you may have missed as well. Tonight, we're going to talk about Scotland, Prince Harry, food banks and much more. But before we get stuck into tonight's topics, I need to introduce to you my guests, and these are the ones who are going to help us make sense of it all.
That'll be a first.
Oh, he's piping up already. Mr. Drew Tosh is here with us this evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Drew. You're very excitable tonight, I think. You think you're dying to get stuck into the stories, are you?
It's the tablets I'm on.
Is it the tablets? They're not working or they are working?
They're working at the moment.
Okay, well, that's good. Lovely to see you as always.
And you?
And joining Drew on the couch this evening is the fantastic Paul Burgess.
Hello.
Paul, hello. Hello. It's lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be back with you, my darling.
And it's the first time we've had this combo, I think, on the couch, isn't it? Drew, Paul, mashup, Burgess, Tosh.
It's going to be a meeting of the minds.
Combo.
It is.
Yeah.
What kind of minds? We'll find out.
Who knows?
We'll find out soon. It's lovely to see you both anyway. Thanks so much for coming in this evening. Remember, it's not all about us on the Daily Rundown. You guys at home can join in as well. Tweet us at the Daily Rundown. We would love to hear from you. This is your chance to tell us what you think as well, so make sure you use that opportunity wisely. Now let's go to our first news story of the evening. Nicola Sturgeon has outlined her next steps in attempting to secure Scotland's position in Europe. In a speech in Edinburgh, Scotland's First Minister highlighted the need to make sure Scotland's voice is heard and our wishes respected. Scottish voters backed remaining in the EU by a margin of 62% to 38%. The UK as a whole voted by 52% to 48% to leave. Sturgeon said she felt contempt for the Leave campaign, which she said lied and gave in to overt racism and the far right. So a lot to kind of get stuck into. She was very, very vocal and opinionated about the whole thing today, wasn't she, Nicola? What do you think, Drew? You're our token Scotty on the couch tonight. Would you like to see Scotland going their own way, or would you like to hang on in there?
I'm hanging on there in every which way, but it's difficult. It's such an emotive thing. I was actually on the phone last night to a friend who I used to live up in Scotland, and she's been down in Oxford about 15 years, maybe even longer than that now, but she's still got very much Scottish roots. And we were just sort of talking about this whole thing. I was never really a big fan of nationalism when I was up there because I didn't like Alex Hammond. Okay. I didn't feel he was there for anybody's interests but his own sort of typical politician. But Nicola Sturgeon, I think, actually is trying to do something for the greater good. She's not just there to make her own little mark in history. And I think now, with Brexit, it would certainly make me consider moving back up because I'm appalled that Brexit won.
Wow, that's interesting.
Absolutely appalled. I'm glad I actually went on holiday. I missed most of the fallout from it. But yeah, I mean, why should a country, and this would apply to Wales, Northern Ireland, anything, why should a country's who overwhelmingly votes one way, why should it mean nothing? And it always means nothing. And I think it probably will make another referendum vote on the table, certainly within the next couple of years, because now we've got Maggie Thatcher, Milk Snatcher Part 2 in power, and she's right. All the people that supported Brexit have all bogged off.
They're not even around to be accountable for. They're not around to answer these questions.
I mean,
she did make
you
that
couldn't make it up. When they look back in history and read the events that have gone on in the past couple of months, they'll think it's like something out of a soap opera. But these are people that we are entrusting to run the UK. Yeah, or the thick of it, and it's sad because I think the UK is a great thing, but it hasn't been a United Kingdom for a long, long time.
Right.
I don't think people who voted Leave were voting for the UK, they were voting for England or they're voting for Wales. I don't think most people in the UK think of themselves as British now. They think of themselves as English or Welsh or Scottish or Northern Irish or whatever, and that's a great shame, but I think it's been that way a lot longer than we realise, and the Brexit vote, I think, proves that.
That's a very interesting point, isn't it? A feeling that there is no United Kingdom anymore, and that there is that divisiveness between the countries within the UK. Paul, would you think that independence would give, as Nicola Sturgeon said today, would give Scotland more stability, as it looks as though we're heading towards a very economic kind of instability based on the Brexit results?
I think that in the long run, Nicola Sturgeon either wants, and I'm a huge fan, by the way, I think she's fantastic. I think she's a really powerful, people-based face of politics. And it's a shame we haven't got the SNP down here. And I think she's in a really awkward, very awkward. There's not much kind of space to move in this place where she finds herself at the moment. In that she could veto this.
Right.
She can veto this. If she does, she infuriates 17 million people in England who voted to leave. But she's not the First Minister of England. She's the First Minister of Scotland, and she has to put the Scottish people first. And I hope that she does veto it, because I think, like Drew said, I think it's absolutely horrendous, and I think it's even worse that people didn't vote with facts. They didn't vote with an informed opinion. They voted truly thinking that this would help, and that we would close the doors on immigration, and suddenly more houses would be built. I actually heard people say, I'm voting Leave because there's no social housing being built in Britain at the moment. And I said, it's got nothing to do with the EU.
There's so many stories like that.
Yeah.
And it was
quite upsetting.
It wasn't their fault. We were all really either not informed or misinformed.
Yes.
And I think that's down to both sides. The Stay campaign should have made it blatantly obvious what the downside of Leave was. And they didn't really. And a lot of people who didn't know, you know, and it's no disrespect to anybody who voted Leave, but a lot of people who voted Leave did it, like you say, for reasons that they thought were the case, but no one actually said that will happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things they were told will happen, all those politicians have already gone back on. So they were kind of sold down the river. They were sold to Turkey, really, and it's a great shame, because I think they probably did act with the best of intentions.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was really awkward. The next day, I spent the day with a really good friend of mine, and it was awkward at first because she voted Leave. And she's a smart girl, she's not, you know, but she doesn't really follow all the ins and outs of the aftermath. She just thought, well, it'll be fine. And she thought that industry will come back. We'll have, you know, factories and mining and stuff again. She thinks it'll go back to the 50s. That's what she thought would happen. And it's like, well, that, you know, I don't know who fed that line to people, but that can never happen. We can't go back.
It was quite
general...
interesting. We talked a lot about the lack of transparency with the campaign in general, didn't we, in the run-up, and that there was a feeling that a lot of people just didn't really fully understand what it actually meant to remain or leave, to be fair. A lot of people, it was both sides. Does any part of you feel that these comments from Nicola Sturgeon today might just fuel a further feeling of division, though, that maybe now this is the case, you know, Brexit has been voted on, or Brexit was the result, we need to kind of suck it up, we need to work together and go back to maybe forming a united feeling within the United Kingdom?
I just can't see how that can ever happen,
no.
because Scotland's voice is never heard. I think that's always been the issue. You know, they're constantly having to go along with a UK vote that they don't predominantly agree with, and it's quite difficult. And also, you know, Scotland wanted to stay in the EU. And
so did Ireland, though. I mean,
Ireland, I was more surprised at Wales, because Wales got a lot of funding from the EU.
They actually benefited
hugely, and it's bizarre that they would then say, let's leave then. Well, they have to give the money back.
Now apparently they're asking whether the funding that they had guaranteed up until 2020 will be made up by the British government. It's
right.
Like, oh yeah, we voted to leave, but that money that we had for regeneration, can we still have that off you?
No.
Again, it's there was a massive lack of understanding, wasn't there?
They've been really hoodwinked as well. And of course, the biggest sort of kick in the teeth is that the horrendous Nigel Farage is still taking his salary as an MEP. He was Brexit, but he's still taking his Member of European Parliament salary for the next 2 years.
Wow.
And he was one of the people that went there the least.
Yeah, if he had any decency, he would have
been twice in
leave
2
from that
years.
post. Yeah,
and he gets €78,000 a year for that role.
Just for that
These
part.
are just odious people.
What do you think about, I mean, obviously, if Scotland were, so if there was I don't know if the referendum, or if Scotland got independence from the UK, there would be a period of huge upheaval. Obviously, there would the issue of the currency as well. If they were to go on and then rejoin the EU as an independent country, would you be happy to would you feel that the benefits of getting into the EU would kind of outweigh the upheaval that probably would cause? And it probably would be for quite a while. The implications are probably obviously related.
I think that's what
financially
she would hope.
Yeah.
Because I think she's putting a lot of eggs in the EU basket. I mean, ultimately, I think it would be a real shame, because I am big UK. I've always thought of it as the UK and the Great Britain and everything. I also have. That's what we were taught in school. It's always that way. But now I can see why there really isn't much choice now. I can't see that there's any other option but to sort of go it alone, but with the backing of the EU, because I just think things at the moment are so bleak.
And there was that feeling, I feel like it might be slightly lifting now, I don't know if you'd agree with that, but for those first few weeks it genuinely felt like the aftermath of, I don't know, some kind of a bit apocalyptic almost, or so, you felt a bit like being in a Hollywood movie.
The horrific underbelly of racism in the United Kingdom as a whole was risen to the surface and given, carte blanche to do and say as it pleased, which was absolutely disgusted. I've seen several articles outlining, there was one in The Guardian just about 2 weeks ago, saying that they'd done a recent survey on 5,000 people who'd voted to leave, and 7% of them, and so they took that as a general kind of consensus, 7% of them said if they could vote again, they would vote Remain. I don't think that we were, as a country, prepared well enough for this vote. I don't ever think it should have been put into the public's hands. And I'm going to be really controversial and say, and those of you out there who are not thick, don't take this personally. This country is full of thick people who don't pay attention, and you've got to pay attention.
I think there should be a quiz. You wouldn't be able to drive a car unless you took a test. I think you shouldn't be able to vote unless you can take a test of 10 simple questions like point to Portsmouth on a map or point to Edinburgh. There's people who don't know anything about the UK at all that are given a vote, and I just think you should not be entrusted with that unless you've actually got a little bit of knowledge. Basic,
I do think a lot of responsibility.
Simple, basic knowledge about the UK. That some of the things that we read afterwards. This Barry from Hull thought Scotland was in England and he wanted to build a wall, forgetting that Hadrian had already done that a few times. I mean, it's just depressing to know that people just don't know that much about their own country.
I mean, obviously, though, a lot of responsibility does also fall to both sides of the campaign.
Absolutely.
As we said, that it wasn't. It wasn't.
David Cameron was kind of naive to actually put it to the vote anyway. I think.
Well, still a highly divisive subject, and obviously with today's news from Nicola Sturgeon, it looks like it's going to go on that way. So we'll keep our eye on these stories. Thank you guys for that. Let's go to our first break. The time's flying this early. We've got lots more news and a very special musical guest coming up as well. Don't go anywhere.